Hello! Today I want to talk about a video I just watched called Humans Need Not Apply on YouTube. Click here if you want to watch it. Okay, so basically the point of the video, and in fact just go ahead and watch it and then come back and let's have this conversation. Alright, so in watching this you see how basically robotics and software and engineering are taking over mental capacity jobs, just as they did previously in the Industrial Revolution with physical jobs. So, physical, mental. What does that mean, though? Well, basically what it means is that we're reverting back to, say, the 1850s and beyond, where there was no such thing as an unemployment rate because there weren't jobs. That wasn't a thing. And I think we need to go back to that. We need to plan ahead for, and I know that sounds crazy. You're all like, what? No jobs? You're crazy. No. Think about it. What do we need? We don't need jobs. What we need is food, water, shelter, preferably without debt. That's the best way to move forward. That allows you to work for what you want, not work to survive. There's no reason to work to survive. We have everything. Everything is at our fingertips. So let's think about it. All right, what would that look like? Well, I mean, you could look at permaculture and biomimicry, for example. They figured out ways to basically use systems of nature, what's already existed, and create a just a better system. In other words, for example, you can go to Pasadena, California. I'll try and find the link and put it here, but if not, just look it up. There's a family in Pasadena, California, lives right in the middle of all the homes of everyone else, on I think a quarter acre, eighth of an acre, something like that. They grow 6,000 pounds of fruits and vegetables a year on that little property, and they have like almost no utility bills. They're right in the middle of the suburbs though, like they're around everyone else. Something showing that it's completely possible. And they make a perfectly good living, and it's very possible. There are many people doing things like this now, especially with the way the economy's going and the way the jobs are going and stuff. So let's think about it this way. Alright, if robots are inevitably going to take over most jobs, leaving most people through no fault of their own, without jobs. If that's the case, then let's set intent. Alright, what do we want? We want as many people as possible, if not everybody, to have access to information, simple, easy, broken down, organized, maybe even modular, like YouTube video structure size, videos on how to do things, how to learn anything, information on what, like, alright, if you're starting out and you need food, water, shelter, okay, let's find out all the different ways that apply to you, easily organized and well instructed by a diverse group of people and a diverse amount of videos on each topic, so that there's something for everyone rather than one size for everything. Like, we're all working together in group work. And there's you know, every type of climate, every type of geographic location with its own species that are local and native, or what's available. I mean, we can totally do this. It's already been done in every climate, so we should just take the very best, go to the very top, and disseminate that information in the best way possible to help everyone. Okay, so that involves a little upfront cost. That's the investment. The reward after that is great. I mean, think about it. If you could basically look up anything you want to know in terms of how do I build this, how do I weld, how do I woodwork, how do I do all these things, and there's step-by-step, very well done, maybe even for each module you have a whole list of videos and they're all vote up, vote down, that way the best ones go to the top, but everything's there. You can take any number of resources, any number of different ways of explaining the same thing until you find one that works for you, that clicks with you, that you understand, that's well explained, and the more popular ones will float to the top. That's one way of doing it. And that's each module, and then you have a string of modules that help explain the general plan, or path toward your goal. Whatever your goal is, you need goals, and then for each goal you have plans, all the different pathways to that goal. Those are all videos, and for each one of those, it goes in a third dimension of all the different ways of explaining that way of doing it. That's one way of going about it. Just a thought. So we've set intent, which is for, at least for me personally, it's for as many people as possible to have food, water, shelter without debt. You can also have things like, okay, well, we want healthcare. How do we have the best way to do that? Well, let's take what we already have, nutrition. Let's break it down, really look into all the research. And every country should do this so there's competition and not one saying, oh no, based on our bias, this is clearly the best way. But other people can be like, oh, but what about this research that you're omitting or pretending doesn't exist? And then you just like, it creates more transparency, more openness. Let's work together. Find the best way, which I found personally to be starting, like maybe not everything, but starts with a really solid nutrition. I think that's pretty well established by now, that your gut bacteria are incredibly important. With the food you put in your body is important. You need to nourish every cell in your body with all the vitamins and nutrients necessary. You also need to move and exercise in a sense, even if it's like, for example, yoga is great for the body. It just is. Look at long-term effects of doing yoga for your whole life versus being sedentary and sitting at a computer your whole life. Look at the difference in people. Look at the difference in skin complexion and happiness, brain scans. There's tons of research on meditation, how good that is for your brain, developing empathy, developing a sense of being able to perceive other people's perspectives and get in their shoes, so to speak. So things like this, we should start there. Then, for all the problems that doesn't cover, like that's your base level. And that knowledge we can already organize. We already have a lot of the data on that, and we can continue getting data on that. Build the foundation. Then for everything else, then we start applying modern technology, modern science, modern research. You can look into different, okay, now we've got that, food. All right, let's go above it. What are all the natural, safest, most effective with the least side effect things that we can start with? Go to that level, fully flesh it out. Then you move on to things like if you need surgery, if you need this or that. But if those two first things don't cover it, which are the cheapest, easiest, most efficient, most effective, then if that doesn't cover it, then we move on to the more difficult, more processed, more input-intensive things. So let's start with the base, and we can do this easily. I mean, things like allergies. How many, I'm not saying it's for everybody, but the majority of people would probably benefit from taking bee pollen from local bees that are around the local pollen, because basically all the plants in whatever area you live make pollen, and that goes around, and then if you have allergies, you're allergic to it. Well, just like so many other things, like vaccines and things, the way they work is you get a small sample of whatever bacteria, whatever it is. In this case, it's pollen. It's in the pollen the bees have already gathered for you. How convenient. And then you just take a little bit, eat it, and then your body says, oh, and then it figures out how to deal with that on a small scale. It wins, and then it there's a whole video on the immune system. Just click here to check out this awesome German channel, broke it down. But basically, you now have cells that remember how to create the proper antibodies to deal with that. And so, done. And then when it comes on in full force, you're ready and you don't get allergies as much. I'm not saying this will help everybody, but even if it helps a significant amount of people, that's more than worth it. Starting there, right? Because that's so cheap. It's like, for me in Georgia, I think it was like $5 for a month's worth of bee pollen. Come on, that's too cheap, too easy to not do, not at least try, right? And then we need to clearly state all of the effects, all the studies, not only have the original sources laid out, but then all of the explanations that cite this and make it all available. But if people just want the quicker, easier, simpler way of seeing it, because we only have so much time, I can't be reading all scientific journal papers for everything. That's just, it's not possible, and most people just aren't going to do it. So let's break it down simple, but source, so that people are willing to go double check. They can, clearly, easily. There's just a lot of things like this. I feel like if we just set intent for what we want as cities, states, countries, continents, like there's probably issues that only apply to a certain continent, like say Asia, or maybe the Philippines, if they had to do with tsunamis and stuff, or water rising, stuff like that, it's specific. And then there's stuff that applies to the entire planet, global warming, climate change, all this war that's going on, like all that kind of stuff. That we should deal with these on the appropriate levels, in the appropriate perspective, with all of the facts, and then the opinions, and then the solutions sorted out, so it's very easy for everyone to access all the information they need. That's just my thought on it. I really like this video though, because talking about the automatic cars that are driving, like Google cars, that's what I like to call them because I love Google. But when you look at these things, That's an amazing advantage. What do you get with an automatic car that drives itself? You don't have to, like if it's electric, oh my god, so fucking cheap. So your pennies on the dollar. If you can get the battery situation sorted out, then you don't have to deal with the environmental concern. If you you don't have to worry about driving drunk, like you can be intoxicated all you want and drive. Or the morning commute, man, take a nap. And not to mention the fact that it'll reduce the morning commute anyway, because automatic driving cars aren't going to be assholes on the road. They just function the most efficient way possible, and you don't even have to think about it. You could catch up on news or stocks, you could meditate, you could do whatever you want. Maybe we build a car that has like a little no back seat, there's just like a little floor, and then you could do like a little morning workout routine. I don't know, this is just a random idea, but things are possible, anything's possible. And then you get public transit mixed in. If we have proper public transit, we reduce the amount of cars on the road anyway further. And if you make it really efficient, effective, safe, clean, come on, that's better for everybody. Like, I don't know why we don't, as the people, decide what we want out of our leadership so that the leaders have a goal to work toward, and they can come up with the best path, and we can provide intent. So here's what we want, leaders of whatever, and then that's your job. Like, focus on this. This is what's important to us in an ascending list of importance. Here's what we think about it. Either go find researchers, find more facts, or they can just come forward, provide their opinion, whatever. We'll just be more efficient about it. Because the reality is this: there is a never-ending list that just keeps going on for infinity about everything. Like you can learn about anything you want and dive in down that rabbit hole as far as you want to go, and you will keep finding more information and someone that knows even more about it. And it'll get to a point where it's just insane and no one will know what you're talking about and you'll be isolated. So we only go so far, right? That's just what we do. So let's accept that fact that no one human, no small group, not even a fairly decent sized group can know everything about anything, much less everything. So we need to work together. We need to all provide all of the information and work together to sort it out and help people who are guiding us have the best information, the best intent, the best goals, the best plans available to them, so they have to think less about it, and we can all work toward a better future for everybody. That's just what makes sense to me. I just think we should work on this as a society, as a planet, and be more functioning with everything. Like, let's just break everything down. Okay, this is getting too long. I'll follow up in a different video at some point, but essentially, let's just look at it like this. What are the problems in the world? List them out. Now let's take each of those problems. Be like, all right, what does it take to push this problem to, like, at what point, make graphs, make charts, take data, show at what point things get really bad, what are the causes of it, how does that relate to everything, how is it connected to all the other problems in the world, and what is the most effective first step, or second step, or third step, or just maybe even take all that data and then skip ahead to the end. What does the end result look like? What do we want the world to look like? And then work our way back and find all the paths and see which ones dead end and which ones lead to the stem of the problem that we have and the solutions, and find the right path. And then we have some different ideas, some different options that actually have been thought all the way through. They actually lead to the end. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We know where we're going. That's all. Doesn't mean that there's one right answer. There's probably not. There's probably a lot of right answers. And there's probably a lot of questions that we need to answer, or even think about why we're questioning it. Like, most people don't understand that, say you're talking about the Holocaust, you can't just say, oh, why would we ever think that it's okay to drop the atomic bomb? Well, no. What's the real question? The real question should be, why was that ever even a possibility? How, like, what was going on? What's the context? What do we need to know about that time period that we're not living in anymore, that most people that were alive then are now dead? What was the context in which that even became something that you could even question in the first place? That's the appropriate question for there. And it's the same thing with everything else. We need to ask the appropriate questions to start with, just like scientists take a long time to come up with a proper thesis or a hypothesis. It takes time. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know how to ask correct questions before you can even move forward. Otherwise, you might go on the complete wrong path, asking the wrong question. For example, robots, okay, we could say, oh, are robots going to take over like Skynet, like Terminator? No, motherfucker. All we have to do is say, okay, what do we want robots to do? What are the possibilities? Let's choose an end goal. What do we want? Well, me, I don't want robots to try and do what humans do. I mean, that's a possibility, but how about focusing on making robots to enhance what humans do, to be an extension, in the same way that a samurai's sword is an extension of his body. When Bruce Lee was playing ping pong with nunchucks, they were a complete extension of his body. It's incredible. So this is what we should do with robots. This is what we should do with technology. Find a way that it best enhances our lives and makes up for things that we lack. Take the lowest common denominator of humanity, of potential, like if people are disabled, I'm not saying that that means their lowest denominator. What I'm saying is like our limitations as a people. Take the limitations that we have, because we do. Everyone is limited in some way. No one's perfect. It's not possible. There's definitely problems. Like I have trouble thinking quickly and being proactive about stuff. I'm a very contemplative person, so that leads to indecisiveness. That's a flaw of mine. So let's take that as a factor and find a way to use technology to enhance people's ability to have all the data they need to make decisions faster. And that's something Google Glass could provide. For example, it's just a thought. Now you get to all these other issues like transportation. All right, well, I could say some people have trouble, like they'll look at a map, they'll look at Google Maps, there's all these options, like, but the traffic, and this isn't perfect. Like, well, if we just get to the point, like set the intent of, all right, I want Google Maps to be able to actually get me there either fastest or the most scenic route or something beautiful or take me somewhere new that I've never been. And with all this data that we have, like, I don't know, there's just a lot of possibilities, but I'm going to stop this video before it gets too long. Just some thoughts, rambling thoughts. Please check out the video if you still haven't. Yeah. Talk to you again soon. Bye.